That's always a good sign. How is everyone doing today? I see Rabia is here. He's a friend of AstroLabs. Let's see, who else? Noman. Hi, Noman. Jan. Hi, Jan. Hi, Kareem. Welcome, everybody. Cool. All right, we're going to start now. So everyone, yeah, so how we usually do this is we have a talk, and if at any point you have a question, feel free to either type it in the chat or you can unmute your mic as well if you want to come on camera. We like to keep it interactive, so feel free to let me know if something is not clear or if you have any questions. All right, sound good?
Yep.
All right, let's get started. So today's talk is how anyone can make money online. It sounds a bit scammy, but I promise you that this talk is actually one where I'm going to give you some practical tips and ways to think about making money online. So all of you can apply this to your own business and your own life. And I mean, who here doesn't want to learn how to make money online, right? All of us could use more money, right? So that's the topic of today, is how to make money online. A little about me. My name is Ahmad. I've been working at AstroLabs for about 6 years now. My experience is in web development. I worked in digital marketing for a while. I was actually one of the first people that worked at the Nemshi marketing team. And I was there for like 2 years. And then after that, I worked for a number of e-commerce clients. And at AstroLabs, I worked with dozens of companies, helping them with their own e-commerce. And I also sold a few things online myself as well. So hopefully in this session, I'll give you some practical tips and what I learned in this field for the last 7 or so years. Just so you know, this is a sample of our week-long or 2-week-long program that starts on Sunday. So this is just a part of it. I can't go over everything because there's not enough time, but I hope today you'll learn something new and hopefully be able to put it into practice. If you do want to learn about the full program, I'll be sharing more details at the end. And I'll also be sharing with you a special offer for that program as well. All right, so I want to ask all of you first, what do you think you need if you want to start a e-commerce business or selling something online? So I guess I just want to poll the audience first. Let me know what you think you need if you want to start selling something online. Like, what are the components that I need to get started?
A platform, payment processor, there are a lot of things, but I think those 2 things are super important.
Okay, that's true. But what is the first thing that I need if I want to sell something online? Like the very first thing.
Service?
Yeah,
Product.
I need something to sell, right? So the first step that people often skip over is, what am I actually going to sell, right? So, I mean, of course, people think about things like, you know, what are they selling, a place to sell, legal setup, operations and delivery, marketing and selling. And they often spend too much time on thinking about things like, what is the legal setup? How do I, you know, get deliveries to the customers? How do I sell things? But it always starts with, what are you selling first? And that's what mainly I'll be focusing on for today's talk, is how to think about what you could sell. And I'll give you some practical ideas for you to think about this on your own. And I'm sure by the end of it, all of you will have thought of at least something that you could sell online. In general, people tend to overcomplicate things. I mean, this is true in life in general, but especially for e-commerce. People often think that they need something very complicated, or they have to think about like a complicated way to do drop shipping, or like whatever is the latest flavor of the month in terms of selling things. But what I wanted to start off doing first is to break it down by what are basically its basic components and the starting point that anyone should start thinking about when they want to sell something online. So in its simplest form, or I mean, like another way of thinking about this is, if you think about it from first principles point of view, there are basically only three main things that I could sell online. Can anyone guess what those three things are? So there are basically three things that I could sell online. Who can guess what they are?
A physical product, a service, and I'm not sure about the third one. A subscription, maybe?
That's close, yeah. So you got 2 out of 3, and the third one, I'll go over it now. So yeah, very good. So you could either think about selling a physical product, and that's typically what people think about when they think about e-commerce, is they think about what could I sell physically? So could I sell a laptop or a shirt, or, I mean, what is something that I could physically sell? So that's the first thing that people typically think about. Now, the next thing that I could think about selling is a virtual product. And I'll explain what that means, but it's something where I don't have to actually deliver something physical, but I can deliver something to the customer in a digital way. And I'll explain some examples of that. And the third one is I could offer services, right? So services are basically where you rent out your time in some way to offer something to somebody. So those are basically the only ways that you could make money online. And I want to give you more examples of each of these so you can start thinking about this on your own and think about how you can apply this to your own life. So let's start with physical products. That's the one that people typically think about when they think about an e-commerce store. That's where you have your own inventory of some kind. Like I buy shirts and I sell shirts. So that's one way of doing it, is you store the products, then you ship it out yourself. Another way is to do what's called drop shipping. And this is like one of the most famous terms nowadays in the e-commerce world. Who can tell me what drop shipping is and why is that different than normal e-commerce? Like, why do people find drop shipping so appealing nowadays?
Well, I think I want to jump in here.
Sure.
Dropshipping has really taken off, mainly because you don't actually own or hold any of the inventory. You're just placing the order for someone via like a third-party service, like from AliExpress or something. But it's a very risky model.
Exactly. So basically, dropshipping is where you don't have to own the inventory. Basically, what happens is someone comes to your site, they place an order, and then you basically send that order to a supplier who then fulfills the order to the customer. So they're the ones that actually send the order to the customer. Now, this has some pros and it has some cons. And usually, like, the cons of it are higher than the pros are usually. But like, just to go over them really quickly, like the pros of this is, of course, I don't have to invest in inventory first. So if I'm selling something on my own, let's say shirts, right? I have to first buy those shirts and store them in a warehouse somewhere. So there's basically like a sunk cost involved where I have to pay for the inventory first. But if I do a dropshipping model, I don't have to actually upfront pay for the inventory first. I can just, when an order comes, I can send it to a supplier and they can send it. Now, the negatives of this are, of course, you can't control the customer experience, number one. So usually drop shipping, I mean, like this was in like normal times. Now it's even worse because of COVID. But before COVID, if you use drop shipping, like an order might take between 2 weeks to 1 month. So if someone places an order on your website, by the time the supplier actually sends it and the customer gets it, it might be 2 weeks to 1 month. Nowadays, it could be even higher because there's even more issues with global shipping, issues. So nowadays, if you do drop shipping, sometimes an order might take 1 month, 2 months, or even longer. So that's like probably like the number one downside for it. Another downside of it is that you'll have higher, higher costs. So your margin will be less. So if you drop ship something, you have to usually pay a higher price for it, which means that you make less profit. That's the second negative thing about it. And in general, yeah, it can work in some cases, but it's not usually something that people do in the long term. Usually, if someone finds a product that is selling well, they usually invest in it to actually store it on their own so they can ship it out. There's a question here, what about print on demand? It's the same thing pretty much. So print on demand is similar to drop shipping in that I can use a service like Printful or Teespring is like another example of this, where I can basically sell things like shirts or like maybe coffee mugs or things like that. And I can print things on it. But the issue also, yeah, I mean, like a third problem with this model is also it's harder to stand out, because if you're selling something that a lot of other shops are also selling, it's really hard to stand out. And usually with print on demand, I've usually only seen it work if you already have a strong brand somewhere else. So if someone already knows about your brand, or if you're like a really good designer, then print on demand could work well. But if you're just starting off, it's a hard model to make work because there's so much competition around it. Anyway, in general, for physical products, I also need to worry about things like the cost of goods sold. Does anyone know what this stands for? Cost of goods sold, or COGS? Has anyone heard this term before?
Yeah, I have. It's the cost of getting your product from your supplier to your customer.
Exactly. And, I mean, it's not even that. It's the cost that you pay to acquire that product before you even ship it. So if I'm selling a shirt for 100, I first have to buy that shirt from somewhere, unless I have my own factory, right? But typically I would have to like pay some factory or some wholesaler to basically buy that shirt first, then I can sell it on my own. So cost of goods sold is basically, it's the minimal cost that I have to pay for a product. Now, of course, if you have a physical product, you of course have to pay that cost. So that's one of the negative things about physical products, is they come with cost of goods sold, because I mean, I can't sell something without paying that factory or that warehouse to actually produce that thing for me. Another thing that you have to worry about is shipping, right? If you have a physical product, you also have to worry about like, how do you get that physical product to the customer? Also, I need to worry about how am I storing that product? So logistics like storage and all of that as well. And I also have to worry about, what if the customer doesn't like the physical product? They might want to return it back, right? So I also have to think about that as well, right? So physical products are usually a good place to think about, but there are many drawbacks to them. And you should think about it a lot in terms of what is the market that you're going after before you consider that. And I'll be sharing with you some tips later on to actually see how you can find a good market. I mean, examples of e-commerce stores. I don't even need to go over this. I mean, Noon, Nemshi, like pretty much any website online that is selling physical products. If they're large enough, they probably have their own warehouse and they're shipping it out on their own. Okay, I have a question for all of you. Who can tell me an example of a famous website in the region that's a dropshipping website? Who can think of an example? It's a fairly large website, and I'm sure most of you have heard of it at least.
Desert Cart.
Desert Cart, exactly. So Desert Cart is actually one of the most famous examples. And if you notice, if you order something on Desert Cart, usually items take at least 2 weeks or maybe even longer. And that's usually a sign that it's dropshipped. If you place an order somewhere and it's a physical product and it takes more than 2 weeks and it's not shipping from somewhere else, like outside of the country, then most likely it's a dropship company. Amazon is actually not an example of a dropshipped company, because they actually do all of the shipping in-house. They have a slightly different model, which is called fulfillment by Amazon. Yeah, Shopify also is not an example of that, because Shopify, I mean, it could be used for dropshipping, but Shopify is more of a platform. It's not like an actual company that like sells products, right? It's a platform that you can join, where you can sell your own products. Okay, so as I said, dropshipping is where you have your own storefront, you do your own marketing, and once an order is placed, it's passed along to a third party that then ships the order to the customer. So like I said, an example of this is Desert Cart, right? And I mean, like I said, you can tell this on your own if you ever shop for something physical, and when you go on the final step and you check out, if it takes longer than 2 weeks, then most likely it's a dropship product. Okay, so that's the first thing that I could think about is selling a physical product. The next thing that I could think about is selling a virtual product. Who can tell me some examples of what could be a virtual product?
So a good example would be Netflix. Their product is
Netflix,
virtual.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Netflix is an example. So that's an example of software as a service. Yeah. Any other examples? Ebooks, yeah, that's one. Mentoring is a service. That's slightly different. A course, licenses, digital artwork, digital gifts. Yeah. So think about anything that can be delivered online to someone where they can either download it or log in to use it. So yeah, examples of this could be courses, could be books, could be software. So Netflix is an example of a virtual type product. It could also be attention. Who can give me an example of this? Using attention to sell something.
Influencer marketing, maybe?
Influencers, yeah. So that could be YouTubers, it could be bloggers, it could be anybody that has their own audience and they basically sell their audience as a product. So that also is a form of a virtual product. There's a question here, what is the legal implication of running a dropshipping company in the UAE? That's a good question. It's a long answer, but the short answer for that is it's perfectly legal and you don't have to actually set up in the UAE. You just have to set up somewhere that can take credit card payments. So one example that we cover in the course is there's a service called Stripe Atlas, which lets you set up a US company for only $500. And then you can take payments in the US and do dropshipping that way. I mean, that's one example. You could set up in the UAE also and do dropshipping that way, but it doesn't have to be the case because with dropshipping, you don't have to actually have physical products on the ground. So you don't have to like legally have a UAE business set up if you're doing dropshipping. And in terms of VAT, I only have to charge VAT if I'm set up in the UAE and I'm charging people in the UAE. If I'm set up in the US and I'm charging customers in the UAE, then I don't have to pay VAT. So, I mean, that's kind of a tricky question. I can go over it more in detail later on. But yeah, there's a question, does dropshipping mean I don't need a DED license? Well, you need some kind of a license. So with dropshipping, I need to have a way to take payments from the customer. In order to accept credit card payments, I need to have some kind of a license. That license could be a UAE license. It could be a license outside of the UAE, but I need to have some kind of a license. And DED is an example. If you're in the UAE and you want to set up a UAE company, then DED is a good option. You could also come to us as well, AstroLabs. We also offer licensing. But yeah, in general, yeah, there are many options. All right, so yeah, examples of a virtual product could be courses, could be books. So I mean, one example is I published my own book, Timeless Digital Marketing, and I'm selling it on my own. And that's something that I could sell as a virtual product, right? Another example is software, right? So SaaS, like software as a service. That's where I create my own software and I charge people for it as sort of a product. Examples of this could be Office, could be Netflix, could be Spotify. Like think about any service that someone would pay for online. It's called software as a service. It's not really a service because services usually imply that you're spending time, but I mean, in a way, it's sort of a virtual product where I just have to build it once and then I can sell it multiple times. So, I mean, one way to think about virtual products versus services is virtual products, usually I can build it once and I can sell it multiple times. So my time is not tied to the product. So virtual products are they're like a good way of selling online, mainly because I don't have to spend time on every single sale. I just have to spend time in creating that virtual product once, then I can sell it multiple times. Another example is attention, where I can basically make money getting other people business. Examples of this could be influencers, YouTubers, affiliates, bloggers, people that start their own newsletters. So anyone that basically is creating their own content, they'll eventually build an audience. Then they can sell things to that audience. And in a way, this is sort of like a virtual product because people will pay you in order to promote their own services or their own products. So in a way, it's sort of like a way to, and people usually do this if they want to either get leads or they want to get sales. And there are many ways that you could do that if you manage to become famous enough where you have an audience. Okay, and the final way of selling is through a service. So I briefly mentioned this like a second ago, but the main difference between a virtual product and a service is where you're selling your time. So examples of this could be consulting work, it could be coaching work, it could be technical work, it could be anything that you deliver with your time, either in person or virtual. Okay, what are some of the benefits of services over virtual products? What do you think? Like, why would someone choose a service over a virtual product? What are some of the benefits?
The operational costs are a lot lower. You don't need to have physical inventory and all that stuff.
That's true. That's true. I also don't have to spend time creating that thing first. So I could start selling a service right away, right? So if I'm good at web development, I don't have to think about what is a web development product that I could sell. I can just right away say, I'm open to hire as a web developer, right? Another thing also is I could charge usually a higher price than I could charge for a product. So usually products sell for less than a service could. But there are some things that you should think about when you're thinking about selling a service. So the main thing is if you're thinking about selling some kind of a service, either consulting, coaching, technical work, anything where you're selling your time in some way, you want to think about it, not that you're selling your time, but instead think about it from the point of view of you're selling what's called a productized service. Has anyone heard this term before, productized service? Does anyone know what this means? Any guesses?
When you classify a set of services with their own price tags?
Basically, yeah. That's one way of thinking about it. So basically, productized services means that instead of saying something, let's give a practical example of this. Let's say that I'm a coach, right? I coach people on something. Now, instead of saying, I'm a coach, you can hire me by the hour, I can instead say, this is my coaching package, and basically turn it into sort of a product. So I basically define what are the parameters of that service. So I basically have to think about how many times of coaching do I have to deliver for them? How many hours would they get? What is the outcome that they would get? So instead of selling it as I'm a coach that can charge by the hour, I instead think about it as a product. So I say, sign up for my coaching program, right? And in the program, I basically define what they'll get in the program. So I basically turn the service into a product. Another example of this is, let's say that I'm offering web development services. If you think about it from just a service point of view, I might say, okay, I'll just sell my time as a web developer. So I'll go on a website like Freelancer or any website that offers like freelance services, and I'll say, you can hire me by the hour. Or another way that I could do this is turn it into a product where I say, I will build your website for this amount of money. So I turn my service into a product that someone can buy. So I'll say, I will build your entire e-commerce site for, like this amount of money. So basically think about turning services into products. They make it easier to sell, number one. Number two is, this is important, is the value or how much I can charge for this service will go up. Why is that the case? Who can tell me why? Why will I make more money if I turn my service into a productized service? What do you think?
And the reason is because it's like when you're buying a phone on the internet, on an e-commerce store, for example. You see it, you like it, you buy it. There's no negotiation. Let's say if I was offering my services on an hourly rate on Upwork, people are gonna ask me, "Hey, can you reduce your rate?" or stuff like that. So
Okay.
that element is gone altogether.
Exactly. Someone also mentioned it in the chat is if you charge as a productized service, I can charge based on the outcome that someone gets. So, I mean, there's a famous saying that people don't buy people don't buy things, they buy what the thing does. So if I want to buy like a hammer, I'm not buying a hammer just because I like a hammer. I'm buying what that hammer does for me. Like, what is the job of the hammer? Is to nail something into the wall, right? So people care more about what your thing does as opposed to thinking about that thing itself, right? So people care a lot more about, yeah, exactly. Someone like mentioned that on the chat is people don't buy a mattress, they buy getting a good night's sleep. That, I mean, that's a perfect example, right? So, I mean, if you think about it that way, people are also more likely to pay because they'll feel that pain, number one. Number two, and this is more like a psychological benefit, is if you charge on an hourly basis, people will start to calculate what your salary is. So they'll say, okay, he's charging 500 per hour. That means that if he works 40 hours a week, that's what his salary is going to be. And they'll say, okay, that's too expensive. But instead, if you like frame it as, okay, I'm selling this service to you and this is what you'll get, they won't think how long it takes, number one. Number two is as I get better, I can start taking less time, right? That's also one of the benefits of this. So for example, let's say that I'm a web developer. In my first year as a web developer, I can build a site in, let's say, 1 month, because I'm still a beginner. But as I get better as a web developer, I can build that same site maybe in 1 week, right? So as I start to like become better at my craft, I can suddenly start doing the same job in less time. So why should I be punished for that, right? If you charge by the hour, then I'll always basically be set on how many hours do I work. But if you charge based on the value, as you get better at that thing, I can start charging less money or like start charging more money for it, and I'll take less time to actually finish that task. So it's basically charging a fixed price for a set of deliverables as opposed to saying, this is my time that I am renting out. So you define what the scope is also. So I say like, this is what you'll get, this is the package, and that's it. And it also helps by setting a beginning and the end to that service. I mean, I'm sure that many people know this. If you ever do freelancing work, clients will always come to you with more things for you to work on, right? So they'll say, okay, you finish this. Okay, now do this, now do that. And if you instead say, okay, this is what I'm gonna offer you. Once I'm done, right? If you want more services, I can offer you more services later on. But in terms of the project, when the project is done, it should be done. So I hope all of you are convinced by that. Okay, another example of a service, and like this is becoming popular nowadays, is what's called Dropservicing. This is similar to dropshipping, except instead, I'm basically having someone that's a third party do that service. So for example, let's say that I'm selling web development services. I can basically market it. And then when I get a client, I can find someone that can do that service for me on like a freelance website, right? Like Upwork or one of those sites. Now, I mean, this seems like it's good also because I don't have to actually hire someone and pay their salary, except again, like the quality of work will probably not be that good in the beginning. And there's a question of customer service, like how good is your service going to be? So even though a lot of people are starting to go down this path nowadays, it has a lot of negative aspects to it. And I would only try this if you're very confident in the kinds of freelancers that you can work with. So if you know someone that you trust very well and you worked with them in the past and you can recommend them, then it could be a good business model, because basically all you're doing is selling for them, right? So if someone is like a graphic designer, I can sell like a graphic design package on my site. And then once I get that as a, as an order, I can pass it along to the freelancer. So it could work, and the freelancer will also be happy because you keep giving them clients. But I would only do this if you have someone that you can trust. Yeah, and the upside is I can hire someone without really hiring them. So I don't have to pay like a fixed salary for it. But the downside, of course, is like the quality might suffer. Okay, so that's basically the first part of my presentation. Is I wanted to talk about what are the ways that you could think about selling things. So what are the categories of things that you could sell? Now I'm going to talk about how you can come up with ideas of things that you could sell. Because I know lots of you here might say, okay, that sounds cool, but I still don't know what I should sell, right? So what I'll talk about now these are some of the practical ways that I recommend if you are still unsure about what you might want to sell. And this will hopefully get your creative juices flowing and help you start thinking about ideas of things that you might want to sell. So keep in mind also that your cost of goods sold, try to keep it below 40% in general, especially if you're just starting off. Like this applies to if you're selling a physical product. So if you're just starting off and you're bootstrapping it, I recommend, based on what I've seen, to have a profit margin of at least 60% if you're doing all of the marketing on your own. So for example, if you're selling something for 100 that's a physical product, I would try to buy it for not more than 40, because you need to have some margin baked into the product so you can actually turn a profit after you cover all of your other costs, like your licensing fees, like the cost of shipping, like the cost of marketing, all of that. That's sort of what I found is a good baseline if you're just starting off. So if you're doing something that's either drop shipping or you're just starting off with selling something online, think about that. And I would try to aim for having a profit of at least 20% after all of your costs. So in the program that we have that lasts for 2 weeks, that starts on Sunday, we actually give you a business plan to follow that you can actually plug in all of these numbers to like see how that works. But if you even want to do this on your own, just take all of your costs and just try to say that, okay, on a per item basis, I'm making at least 20% profit after all of my costs. Also, think about how large is this market, and I'll give you some tools to actually help you gauge that, to see how many potential customers do I have that I could sell to. Also, think about, are they price sensitive? Examples of this could be, if you're selling items to teenagers or people that are unemployed, right? Then generally you would have a harder time selling it than to someone that's a bit older that would be willing to buy that product. So also think about that. If you were in their shoes, would you buy this product? Are they price sensitive? Also think about, do they go online, right? Do they congregate online? Because if they do go online, then it'll be easier to sell to them. One example of this is people that are above the age of 60, they are not price sensitive generally because they usually have more money. But people above the age of 60 generally don't go online as much. So they're generally harder to market to than people that are younger. So it's a trade-off, right? Anyway, so let me start with the 5 tips that I recommend that you think about in order to think about something that you might want to sell. So the first thing is, I would start with your own self. Think about what you know, right? And things that I recommend that you think about are, what is something that you're personally passionate about? So maybe you're passionate about laptops or about shirts or fashion or whatever it is. Think about something that you're personally passionate about, because also, selling stuff online is not that easy. There's a lot of work involved. And if you're passionate about it, it'll help you get through it in an easier way. I mean, it'll help you basically stay motivated more if you're somewhat passionate about what you're selling. I mean, like, you don't have to be like a super fan of what you're selling, but at least you have some kind of a interest in that thing. Think about also, what is something that bothered you in the past? So something that you wish that you could find online, that you wanted to buy online, but you couldn't. This is usually a good place to start. Maybe it's something that you bought online that had a bad experience, or maybe it's something that you bought online that you were not satisfied with the quality of that product, right? Or like maybe like they had very bad delivery or bad customer service, or in general, like you didn't like the product in some way. Think about how you could do that better. What is a product that you wish existed? So like, this is something where like I wish that I could have this thing, but I can't find it anywhere. That I mean, does happen to most of us at some point, where we think about certain things that we wish that we could buy online that's maybe hard to find. I mean, it could be something from your home, right? I mean, if you're not based here, maybe it's something that you wish that they sold here that you found in a different country, maybe. So that's the first thing, is I recommend to always start with yourself and think about what could you personally think about selling from your own life, because that's a good place to start. Because if at least you would buy that thing, then that means that there are probably more people like you out there. The second tip I have for you is to do practical research. And there are some tools that I want to share with you now that can actually show you what is either currently selling online. And this is more relevant for physical products, but it could also be for services as well. So I could see what is currently selling, and I could also see what are people currently searching for on websites like Google, right? So examples of this is, I could look on a website like Facebook. So Facebook is where most e-commerce and people that are selling online advertise on nowadays. And if you go on this link here, facebook.com/ads/library, I can search for any brand in the world and see what ads they're running. So Facebook does this mainly for transparency purposes. And I think because in some markets in the EU, I think, they were required by law to like make some of their data public. So I can actually go on this link here and actually see what any famous brand around the world is selling in their ads. So this is a good way if you want to see maybe what's working in different markets, or maybe in a particular like category of a product. I can see what people might be spending their like money on in terms of the ads. So that's one way that I could look at it. Another way is I could use basically data from Google, which is basically, I could see what are people currently searching for online. And I could use a website called Google Trends for this. Or I could use Google Shopping, also Google Keyword Planner. These are all tools that are free that you can use to actually see what are people searching for. So I'll just show a quick example of this. So if you go on the website trends.google.com, I can actually go onto the section that says, yeah, so if you go on this website, and it's free, anyone can come here. And then here, go on the left where it says explore. And then here I can look for, in the UAE, over the last 12 months in the shopping category, what did people search for? So here I can actually see what are the physical products that people are searching for here, right? Balloons, IKEA, jewelry. So I can search by category or by topic. I can also search for any word here. So I could search for like Apple versus, let's say, Samsung, right? And I can compare basically two companies or any two products around the world and basically see what is selling better. And I can do this for any term, right? So here, for example, you'll notice that usually Samsung does better, but sometimes Apple does better. And usually that happens when they have a product launch, right? So usually if there's like a new iPhone or something, they usually get more searches, right? So yeah, I mean, it's a way basically for you to see like what are people currently searching for. And it's a way basically to look at data because, I mean, for most markets, I mean, especially in the UAE, more than 90% of searches are done on Google search. So using a tool like Google search will really let you see what are people searching for online. And that could be looking at products, services, or anything else. So yeah, I could use websites like Facebook to see what ads people are showing. I could use Google Shopping, Google Trends, or Google Keyword Planner, which is part of Google Ads. All of these are free to use. So even if you don't want to spend on it, you can just go on any of these sites and basically just browse what are people currently searching for. Next is I could do my own market research. So there's a link here that I'll share in the slides that basically tell you what are the top selling categories of products. And usually websites like Shopify put out regular data. So they put out things like case studies and like just general market trends of what's currently selling. So you can monitor that. You could also use various dropshipping tools. So I'll give some examples of these, but there are certain tools that basically tell you what is currently selling in the dropshipping world. And I can use that either to like dropship myself or even sell those products in a normal way. Because if they're working in dropshipping, then they're probably working if I sell it on my own as well. So one thing that I recommend in general though, is if you're starting off thinking about selling any kind of product, I would start with one category or one niche of product. So one of the most common problems that I have, or that I found that people have, is they generally try to start like an Amazon store, like a jack of all trades store, where they sell phones and shirts and like everything that they could think about. And that's really hard to do because it's really hard to find customers in the beginning. What's much better to do, and it's more targeted, is find one kind of product and one kind of niche that you want to target, and start with some products just for those people. So for example, I could start with parents as a niche and basically build a site that sells products to parents as an example, right? That's much easier for me to market, to find products, and to become profitable than if I just say, okay, I want to start like an Amazon competitor, right? I mean, that's a bad idea in general. So I recommend start with some kind of a niche first before you start thinking about, selling a bunch of things. Yeah, so there are lots of data that you could look at. I mean, one example is Oberlu. They put out a frequent data around what is currently selling, what are the top categories. Oberlu is one of the plugins that are used by Shopify. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of data in the Shopify community in general that tell you what's currently selling. I could also look at websites like wish.com and search by the popular tab, and I can see basically what are people currently selling. On wish.com, most of these products are being drop shipped. So these are all products that people are selling and that are high sellers. Now, I don't always recommend to like only sell products that are popular, because that also means that there's probably more sellers for it, so it'll be more crowded. But it gives you some idea of where to start. And like I said, in general, like maybe you could start by like maybe trying dropshipping first, and then if it works out, then maybe you could basically start selling it on your own, just by like ordering some and just selling it. And in the full program, we're going to go more in detail on this, if you can make it on Sunday, where we'll basically cover even more tools that you could look at to basically look into what's currently selling online. You could also look at suppliers as well. So you could go on websites like AliExpress, for example, and look at like suppliers there and see which of them have a high rating, like which of them have high volumes of orders, and basically like look at that data there. So like you could basically look at websites like AliExpress, Alibaba, and basically see what's currently selling there. And that would give you some idea of what might sell in your own market. Okay, so I already talked about this. Yeah. So a third tip that I have for you is what's called waterholing. Has anyone heard about this before? Or can you guess what waterholing means? Any guesses? Let's give everyone a second. What do you think waterholing means? From the picture or from the name, maybe? Any guesses? Anybody? So what people need, yeah, in a way. What it basically means though is you basically, like the desert, yeah, okay, let me ask you a question, okay? If I wanted to sell something, is it a good idea to send a survey and ask people, what would you buy? Is that a good idea? Yes or no? Is like sending a survey? Not really, no. Because, I mean, if you send someone a survey or you ask them, what would you buy? People will either lie to you because they're trying to be friendly. They'll say, yeah, I'll buy that. But then when you actually start selling it, they'll say, actually, I didn't really want it, right? Or they'll say, no, I don't want it, right? And I mean, like they'll be brutally honest with you and say, no, that'll never work. So in general, surveys are not a good way to actually see if someone would buy something. I mean, like the best way to see if someone would buy something is just to sell it and see if they buy it, of course, right? But there's an easier way that you could also look at as well. And that's look for places called water holes. And the idea basically is that online, people generally form into their own communities. So that could be communities on Facebook groups, it could be Facebook pages, it could be forums, it could be meetup groups, it could be it could be even like a WhatsApp group, right? Any place where people go online where they form their own communities of people is a good place for you to go into and see what they're talking about and what their needs are. So you could go on websites like Quora, like Reddit, like Facebook groups, and just like in your category that you're targeting, see what are things that people there want. And generally look at problems that they have. So generally, if you're in some kind of a group, people might say, oh, like I'm really looking for a product that can help me do this thing, or I'm looking for a service that can help me do this. And it's coming from them. Like they're not looking to like validate what you're offering. So on their own, they're looking to solve a problem. And these communities are very powerful because people come up with things that they want. So they basically give you their problems, and it's just your job to solve those problems. Examples of this is I could go on websites like Quora, right? And say, and like search for a certain topic. So if I stay on the example of selling products for parents, right? I could look at what are people asking in the parenting category. So here someone is saying, what are the best baby cribs? So on their own, they have a problem where they have a baby. They're not sure what the best crib is for the baby. So they want to ask people to see what they think. So if you can basically go here and see like what's troubling them and then how your product solves that trouble, it'll help you in your marketing. It'll help you in also choosing a product. So basically here, imagine if she says, okay, like I'm worried about, if the baby will fall out of the crib, right? So in your marketing, you could say like, buy our crib that is guaranteed to not make the baby fall out. If that's one of the services that it offers, right? Of course, don't lie, but if it's something that is offered by the product, then yeah, it's a good thing to look at what our customers saying is a problem and how your product solves that problem. Yeah, this website is Quora, but like I said, you can go on any website that has any form of a community. So it could be, meetup groups, Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, anywhere that people go online. Okay, my fourth tip is think about yourself as the product. Has anyone seen the movie Catch Me If You Can?
Yeah, it's a really good movie.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites actually. Yeah, and it's based on a true story. So the idea basically is there's this guy who was like a con artist, and he did things like, I mean, basically became a pilot, he became a doctor, and in the beginning, he became a teacher. And why I'm giving you this example here is that, like the guy behind the story, he was asked, like, how did you have the confidence to become a teacher when you were only like 17? And he said, the only thing that I had to do was stay one chapter ahead of the students. So if he was teaching something, like in this case, he was teaching French, I think, and he didn't speak French. So what he would do was, if they were on chapter 2, he would read chapter 3 and basically teach them. So he would basically have enough understanding of what was covered, just enough to teach the course. So like, why I'm telling you this is that all of you here probably have something that you could teach other people, either as a course or as a consultant offering some kind of a service. And I'm sure that most of you could teach me something in some way, right? Accounting, or, I mean, anything, right? Graphic design, no matter what it is, all of you probably have some skill that you could teach or you could turn into a service, right? So think about how you can basically offer your time, your knowledge, and just be one step ahead of everybody else. And like, people often think about, okay, like, I'm not someone that has like 20 years experience in this field, or I'm not someone that is like the best in my field. You don't have to be like the best in your field. You just have to be better than like most people are. And I'm sure most people here are better at something than most other people are. So I'm sure most of you have some kind of a skill that you could leverage into either a course or a consulting service, or something that you could offer where you share your time and your knowledge to actually help people in some way. And in general, this is a good thing to offer because it's a high margin thing. So it doesn't need you to actually, like, build a product or like store a product. It's basically just offering your time. And in general, it's something that most people can get started with. And my final tip to think about is think about bargain hunting. And this is a major thing that Gary Vee talks about in terms of starting off. One of the things that he mentions is, if you want to get started with selling stuff online, the easiest way is to look for things that you could basically flip or like sell online. So examples of this are, you could look for deals like secondhand items, things that you could find offline and then sell them online. Look for like things on classified websites that you could sell online. And it's a great way, especially if you're just getting started and you basically want to like see how to sell things online. This is a good place to start because you don't have to worry about getting a lot of things. Like, you just have to worry about how you can basically find something that you feel is undervalued and sell it at a higher price. So maybe it's something that you find in a shop in, I don't know, Karama or like somewhere like that you feel is not being like marketed properly, and just take that and put it online, right? So so I'm sharing here with you a brainstorming sheet for you to think about these things. So these are 5 things that I recommend that you think about on your own. Think about what is something that you think would sell well on your own, or an item that you wish existed or that could have been done better. Second thing is, do your own research using those tools like Google Trends and some of the other ones. Third one is, find a watering hole that would have people that you think would be good customers for you, and maybe even start with the customers first. Like what is a customer base that you think could use something that you could offer, right? Next is, think about yourself as the product. So think about selling your own time or your own services or your own knowledge in some way. And fifth is, think about bargain hunting in some way, where you look for things that are undervalued in some way and sell them at a higher price. So like, just to give you a very quick example of this with my own examples. So like, what is something that I think would sell well that I wish existed here? Certain candy products that I can't find here. One example is, there's a candy called Sour Patch Kids that I really like, and I can almost never find it here. It's a silly example, but I mean, think about it in your own life. Like, what is something that you wish that you could find here online? Next is think about something that has a lot of people searching for it, but doesn't have a product yet. One example is AirPod cleaners. So if you have a AirPod, like these things that Apple has, right? Inside of it, they get very dirty, and people always search for what is a good way of cleaning these things. And I haven't really seen a product that offers that. So like that could be one idea, right? One example of a Waterhole is I'm in a few parenting groups online, and people often ask about what is a good homeschool curriculum that they could give to their kids. So that could be one example of something that I could offer as a service or a virtual product. Think about myself as a product. That's where I personally could offer someone marketing support, or that's why I wrote a book on it. Bargain hunting. I found that there are certain shops in the old part of Dubai that sell old MacBooks that are refurbished. So one potential business could be finding those kind of laptops that still work at a cheaper price and selling them for a higher price online. Those are just like some examples just to get you started thinking about what are things that you could think about selling either as virtual products or as services. And I recommend that you go through this on your own later on and just think about your own answers to these questions. And then think about, based on that, what would be something that you think would be the best business based on your answers. And it could be one of these or it could be all of them. Finally, if you want access to the slides here and also want to learn more about our full program, I'll also share with you the video of today's session, along with a special discount. You can basically go to this link here, astrolabs.com/meetup. There's a short form that you can fill out there. Just let us know what you thought about today's session. Did you like it? Do you have any feedback on it? And then afterwards, I'll send you all of the slides from today and the video, and I'll also share with you a special offer on our program that we have coming up. This program, it's a full-fledged 2-week course. So we'll teach you everything from how to write your own business plan, how to actually build your own e-commerce site. So by the end of it, you'll have your own site fully launched. You'll also have your own business plan. So you'll know exactly how much are you selling, what is your profit margins. I'm basically like a P&L sheet. You'll also be able to set up your business in a legal way. So we'll go through all of the questions that you might have about what is the best way to set this up legally. Do I have to pay taxes? Like, what's the legal setup that I should do for my own idea? So we'll cover all of that. We'll also give you 1 free month at AstroLabs, so you can work on your own idea for 1 month for free at our co-working space. So these are all benefits of the program. And we also offer mentorship as well. So if you have any questions, we can help you get started. Someone said they already started setting up a homeschool consultancy. That's great. Let us know about it and we can share it with everybody. So in general though, our course is not just about our course. Everyone here in this meetup, we hope that you would continue with your journey with us, whether or not you take this course or not. So, for us, we're trying to build a whole community of both free events and events that you get once you take one of our courses. So if you take any of our courses, you'll get lifetime access, not just to that course, but also you'll get a lot of advice, free events, career support, alumni exclusive events. You can also leverage our own network as well. We've helped dozens of people get jobs in our own network. So, for us, our goal is to help you on your journey of both upskilling and also either starting your own business or getting a job. So in general, in short, we're here to help you. So I hope that you found this talk beneficial, and I hope that you could join our course. But regardless, I recommend that you fill up this survey here that I mentioned on the screen. Spend just 2 minutes on it. Let us know what you thought about the course, and then I'll be sharing with you all of our slides and the videos from today's session. I have a couple of minutes if anyone has any questions before we go.
Hey, Noman here. Just wanted to say thank you for the entire meetup. I really appreciate it, and it's nice seeing Namshi alumni. I used to work at Namshi as well.
Oh,
yeah.
Awesome. Okay. That's really cool. Welcome. All right. Yeah. Thanks for coming, man. Really appreciate it. All right, everyone. So I guess I'll be going now. Also, yeah, if anyone has any other questions, here's my email as well. I'll put it on the chat. It's just Ahmad@astrolabs.com. If you have any questions, let me know. Fill in this survey and we'll be in touch. All right, everyone. Have a great day. See you around. And let's make it happen.